It all started subtly, a barely perceptible tremor in my digital world. For years, I had poured my heart and soul into creating content, sharing my passions, connecting with an amazing community. My corner of the internet felt like a safe haven, a vibrant space where creativity flourished and genuine conversations happened. Then, like a dark cloud creeping over a sunny landscape, the negativity began to appear. At first, it was just a stray comment here and there, easily dismissed as the usual internet static. A snide remark, an eye-roll emoji, nothing too serious. I told myself it was part of the territory, the price of putting yourself out there. But then the comments started to get sharper, more personal, dripping with a venom that felt unsettlingly familiar. It wasn't just random hate anymore. This felt directed, pointed, as if someone was studying my content, looking for weak spots, for vulnerabilities. My initial reaction was confusion, then a dull ache of annoyance. The dull ache of annoyance soon morphed into a prickle of unease. It was like a constant hum beneath the surface of my usually vibrant online interactions. The comments weren't just negative anymore. They were insidious. They twisted my words, misrepresented my intentions, and often they simply made things up. A lighthearted joke about a minor technical glitch in my setup would be spun into an accusation of incompetence and unprofessionalism. My heartfelt discussions about personal growth were reinterpreted as self-aggrandizing narcissism. It felt less like random internet trolls and more like a carefully orchestrated campaign. There was a consistency in their approach, a shared vocabulary of derision, even if the usernames were different. Sometimes it would be a brand new account, sometimes an older one that had suddenly sprung to life with vitriol. They seemed to know exactly which buttons to push, which insecurities to exploit. They would bring up old content, obscure details I had long forgotten, and use them as ammunition. It was unnerving, like someone had meticulously archived my digital life, not out of admiration, but out of a perverse desire to find fault. My initial response was to block. I became a prolific blocker, clearing out the worst offenders, trying to reclaim the peace of my comment sections. But it was like bailing water from a leaky boat. For every one I blocked, two more seemed to appear, or the same ones found new ways to circumvent the blocks. They migrated to other platforms where I was active, leaving similar corrosive remarks on my social media posts, my community forums. Even my email inbox started receiving anonymous, vaguely threatening messages. The joy began to drain out of content creation. What was once a spontaneous, exhilarating process became a chore, fraught with anxiety. Every video I edited, every post I drafted, I found myself scrutinizing it through their eyes. How would they twist this? What vulnerability would they pounce on? My authentic voice started to waver, replaced by a cautious, almost defensive tone. I started second-guessing everything, losing sleep over word choices and image selections, fearing the inevitable onslaught that would follow. My community, my genuine supporters, noticed the shift. They started asking if I was okay, if everything was all right. Some even tried to defend me in the comments, but their efforts were often met with a barrage of coordinated attacks, turning their well-meaning interventions into fresh battlegrounds. I hated seeing them drawn into this ugly mess. It felt like my personal darkness was spilling over and tainting the very space I had worked so hard to cultivate as positive. The familiar venom. That phrase kept echoing in my mind. It wasn't just the general nastiness of the internet. There was a specific flavor to this malice, a knowledge that felt too intimate. It was the way they would subtly undermine my confidence, the precise language they used to make me doubt my own memories or intentions. It felt like a ghost from my past, a shadow I thought I had outrun had somehow found its way into my digital sanctuary. Had someone I knew taken this turn? Was this a vendetta, a long simmering resentment finally boiling over? The thought chilled me more than any random internet hate ever could. I started spending hours poring over the comments, looking for patterns, for a common thread that would betray their origin. I examined IP addresses where I could, cross-referenced usernames, searched for connections. It was a futile exercise, a rabbit hole that only deepened my paranoia. The accounts were often throwaways, the IP addresses masked or VPN protected. It was a hydra, cutting off one head only made two more sprout. My real life began to suffer. I was constantly distracted, checking my phone compulsively, dreading new notifications, but unable to stop myself from looking. My focus at work dwindled. Conversations with friends felt distant, my mind always drifting back to the digital battlefield. I felt isolated, even when surrounded by people. How could I explain to them the insidious nature of this invisible enemy, the way it chipped away at my self-worth, the feeling of being constantly watched and judged by unseen eyes? They would offer well-meaning advice like, just ignore them, or don't let it get to you, but they didn't understand the relentless, personal nature of the assault. It wasn't just noise, it was targeted destruction. The vibrant colors of my digital world had faded to a dull gray. The safe haven had become a trap, a public arena where I was constantly on trial. I felt exposed, vulnerable, stripped bare for anonymous strangers to dissect and ridicule. The mirror reflected a tired, anxious face, eyes constantly scanning, searching for threats that weren't physically present but felt terrifyingly real. I missed the days when I could create freely, without the suffocating weight of anticipated criticism. I missed the genuine connections, the unadulterated joy of sharing my passions. Now every upload felt like throwing a piece of myself into a shark tank. The question was no longer if they would attack, but how, and when, and how much more of me they would consume. The familiar venom was now a constant drip, slowly poisoning my digital existence, and with it, a significant part of my own identity. I knew I couldn't continue like this. Something had to give.